They told me I'd become a knight of the wasteland, a hero in power armor protecting humanity's future. But after 7 months in the Brotherhood of Steel, after the surgeries that rewired my brain and the missions that stripped away my soul, I learned the truth. We weren't saving anyone. We were just another breed of monster, teaching children to pull triggers before teaching them to read. Because in the Brotherhood's world, steel doesn't have to feel guilty about the bones it's built on. If you're hearing this, then you've found what's left of me. Maybe just my holotags. Maybe this recording, tucked inside my field scribe kit, where I thought Elder Maxon would never look. Doesn't matter now. What matters is that someone knows the truth about what it means to wear the mark of the Brotherhood. What it really means. My name is Initiate Harrison. Was. I was Initiate Harrison, designation 447B, sworn to the Brotherhood of Steel 7 months, 3 days, and 14 hours ago. The exact time matters because they make you memorize it. They make you recite it every morning before you're allowed your protein ration. State your oath time, Initiate. Like you're a machine tracking operational hours. Maybe that's the point. Maybe they want us to be machines. You need to understand something before I continue. Before this fever takes what's left of my mind. The Brotherhood isn't what the wastelanders think. We're not knights. We're not saviors. Look at my hands. Go on, imagine them. See those scars across the knuckles? That's from my first day when Paladin Krieg made me punch a suit of T-45 power armor until my bones showed through the skin. Technology demands sacrifice, he said, watching my blood streak across the sacred steel. If you won't bleed for it, you'll die for nothing. The smell hit you first when you entered the Citadel, our fortress in what used to be the Pentagon. Machine oil mixed with cooking fires, ozone from the laser rifles always charging in the armory, and underneath it all, that metallic taste of recycled air that never quite felt clean. You breathe it in deep that first day, thinking you're breathing in glory, honor, purpose. You're breathing in your cage. They lined us up in the courtyard that morning. 23 fresh recruits pulled from settlements across the Capital Wasteland. Some came willingly. Some, like me, were recruited after our towns fell under Brotherhood protection. Protection. That's what they called it when they took our water purifier and left us 2 cases of Aqua Pura a week in exchange. My little sister needed more than that. She had the wasting sickness. But Knight Captain Duran said resource allocation was based on strategic value, not sentiment. Sarah died 3 weeks after I took the oath. I never got to see her. Initiates don't get leave. The first thing they do is strip you down, not just your clothes. Though yes, you stand naked in that courtyard while December wind cuts through your bones. They strip your name, your past. You're a number and a rank. Nothing more. Scribe Halen walked the line with her clipboard, that perpetual frown creasing her face. You learn quick that scribes might not wear power armor, but they control information, and information is survival. In the Brotherhood, you are no longer wastelanders, Elder Maxon's voice boomed from the balcony above. You should understand, Arthur Maxson isn't like the recruitment posters. He's young, maybe 22, with scars that map a lifetime of killing across his face. When he looked at you, you felt small, like a radroach under a boot. You are steel to be forged. Most of you will break. This is acceptable. Broken steel can be melted down and recast. But weakness is rust, and we do not tolerate rust. The Codex came next. Oh, you think you know about the Codex? Those scraps of Brotherhood propaganda that filter out to the wasteland? That's nothing. The real Codex fills 3 footlockers. Every rule, every regulation, every technical specification for every piece of pre-war technology the Brotherhood has ever recovered. We had 2 weeks to memorize the first volume, 600 pages. Paladin Krieg had a method for helping us remember. Each mistake earned you a lesson. Forget the proper maintenance interval for a laser rifle's focusing crystal. You clean every weapon in the armory with a rad scorpion stinger, barehanded, while the poison sac is still attached. Misquote the litany of the machine spirit. You stand watch in the rain wearing nothing but your underclothes, reciting it, until your lips turn blue and the words become prayer. You want to know what breaks a person faster than torture, making them complicit, making them watch it happen to others and do nothing, making them participate. There was this kid, Initiate, Chen. Couldn't have been more than 16, lied about his age to get in. Skinny thing from Megaton. He mixed up the proper blessing for a suit of T-51B armor. Said, "May this steel carry the Brotherhood's light," instead of, "May the Brotherhood's light sanctify this steel." Small mistake, right? Wrong. Knight Sergeant Garza made us all watch, while Chen stripped down to his skivvies and climbed inside an unpowered suit of T-60. You ever been inside power armor without the exoskeleton active? It weighs about 400 pounds. The Knight Sergeant locked him in there for 6 hours. We could hear him screaming after the first 2. By hour 4, he was just whimpering. When they finally pulled him out, his legs had gone numb from the weight. He couldn't walk for 3 days. But here's the thing that still wakes me up at night. By week 3, when Initiate Morrison forgot the proper litany for energy weapon maintenance, it was Chen who suggested the punishment. "Make him disassemble a plasma rifle," Chen said, his voice steady as steel. "Without gloves." So he remembers what happens when you don't respect the technology. Morrison's hands looked like melted wax after. The plasma residue, it never really stops burning, you know. Just keeps eating through layer after layer. The medscribes had to graft skin from his thighs. That's what the Brotherhood does. It doesn't just break you, it rebuilds you into someone who breaks others. The days blurred together. 04:30 wake up. Physical training until your muscles tore and rebuilt stronger. Weapons drills where a single jam meant starting over from hour 1. Technology reclamation theory, where they taught us to see every wastelander's jury-rigged water purifier as theft from humanity's rightful inheritors, us. Combat doctrine that reduced the Commonwealth's people to 3 categories: assets, obstacles, and enemies. But the worst was Elder Maxon's personal sessions. Once a week, he'd select 5 initiates for advanced ideological training. You'd sit in his war room, surrounded by recovered technology that hummed with barely contained power, while he explained the truth the Brotherhood doesn't put in its recruiting speeches. "The bombs didn't destroy the world," he told us, his eyes reflecting the green glow of the terminal screens. Humanity's weakness did. Their democracy, their freedom, their belief that everyone deserved a voice, deserved technology they couldn't understand or control. We are not rebuilding that world. We are building something better. A world where the strong protect technology from the weak, where order supersedes choice, where steel supersedes flesh. He made us repeat it, made us believe it. And somewhere, between the hunger and the exhaustion and the constant grinding pressure, we did. You start to see wastelanders as children playing with nuclear fire. You start to feel the weight of your responsibility. No, your burden. You're not killing farmers who refuse to hand over their laser pistols. You're saving the future from their ignorance. I remember the exact moment I broke, not physically. My body had been broken and rebuilt a dozen times by then. I mean the moment my soul finally snapped to fit their mold. It was during my first field assignment. Knight Captain Durand led our squad to a settlement called Greentop Nursery. Intelligence suggested they'd found a cache of pre-war military. Robots. The Brotherhood wanted them. The settlers. They just wanted to use them for farming. You ever see hope die in someone's eyes? Really watch it drain out like blood from a wound. The settlement elder, this woman named Margaret with radiation scars across her jaw, she actually smiled when she saw our power armor. "Thank God," she said. "The Brotherhood, we've been waiting for help. The raiders have been..." Durand backhanded her. "Not hard enough to kill, just hard enough to shatter teeth. We're not here for your problems, Wastelander. Show us the robots." They'd reprogrammed 2 Protectrons and a Mr. Handy. That's it. 3 agricultural units helping them grow potatoes and corn in that irradiated soil. Margaret's grandson couldn't have been older than 10. He'd figured out the programming himself. Kid was a genius. In another life before the bombs, He'd have been at Robco or General Atomics. Please, Margaret begged through her broken mouth. We need them for the harvest. Without them, we'll starve come winter. Durand looked at me. Initiate. Harrison. First Codex principle regarding technology recovery. My mouth moved without my permission. The words came out clear, precise, empty. Technology must be secured from those who would misuse it through ignorance or malice. The Brotherhood alone possesses the wisdom to shepherd humanity's remnants. And the punishment for technology hoarding. Confiscation of assets. Re-education of violators. Termination if resistance is encountered. Margaret pulled her grandson behind her. We're not hoarding. We're surviving. Please, I'm begging you. Initiate, Harrison. Durand's voice cut through her sobs. Secure the technology. I want you to understand something. In that moment, I could see everything clearly. I could see that little boy's eyes, wide with terror and something worse, disappointment. He'd believed the stories, believed the Brotherhood were heroes. I could see Margaret's hands shaking as she held him. I could see the other settlers, maybe 15 souls total, watching from doorways and windows, their faces gaunt with hunger that would only get worse. I could see all of it, and I did it anyway. The Protectrons didn't want to hurt anyone. They kept asking in those tinny voices, "Is there a problem, sir or madam?" Right up until I yanked their processor cores. The Mr. Handy tried to run, tried to float away while crying these synthesized tears, begging us to let him keep helping his family. Knight Reese put a pulse grenade through his chassis. The electromagnetic burst fried every circuit. The robot's last words were, "But who will tend the garden?" That's when the boy broke free from his grandmother, ran straight at me, these tiny fists beating against my combat armor. "You're supposed to be good," he screamed. "You're supposed to help people." I looked down at him through my helmet's visor. This child, this brilliant child who taught himself robotics from scratch. And you know what I did? I grabbed him by the throat, lifted him off the ground. Felt his pulse hammering against my metal fingers. "The Brotherhood helps humanity," I told him, my voice distorted through the helmet speakers. "Not wastelanders who forgot their place." Durand was pleased. Said I, showed promise. Put me up for accelerated advancement tonight. That night, back at the Citadel, Elder Maxon himself commended me in front of the entire chapter. "Initiate Harrison understands," he announced, "that mercy is a luxury humanity can no longer afford." They gave me double rations, a private bunk instead of the Initiate barracks, access to the restricted archives where the real history lives, where you learn that Vault-Tec didn't just build shelters, they built laboratories, testing grounds. The vaults were never about saving anyone. They were about gathering data for whatever came after. Vault 87, where they manufactured super mutants. Vault 75, where they harvested children for genetic material. Vault 11, where they made people sacrifice each other for the illusion of survival. "This is why we are necessary," Scribe Commander Gladius explained, her fingers dancing across terminals full of classified data. Humanity had its chance with democracy, with freedom. They built weapons that could crack atoms and created companies that turned genocide into profit margins. Every piece of technology we confiscate, every laser rifle we take from a wastelander's hands, we prevent another apocalypse. She wasn't wrong. That's what makes it worse. She wasn't wrong. The Brotherhood. Archives contained things that would break your mind. Footage from the day the bombs fell. Not the sanitized memorial reels, but the real recordings. Children's shadows burned into concrete. Entire cities turned to glass. There was this one video from Boston, security footage from a hospital. You could see the flash in the distance, and then you could see the people in the waiting room just melt. Not instantly. Over the course of about 30 seconds. This pregnant woman trying to shield her belly even as her skin sloughed off like wet paper. This is what technology does. In the wrong hands, Gladius said. This is what freedom costs. They made us watch it all. Every Vault experiment, every military atrocity, every corporate conspiracy that led to the Great War. FEV experiments that turned people into super mutants. The Institute replacing people with synths, machines wearing human faces, infiltrating communities, gathering data for unknowable purposes. The Enclave's plans to release modified FEV into the water supply, killing anyone with even slight genetic mutations, which, 200 years after the bombs, meant everyone except them. You watch enough horror and your heart develops. Scar tissue. You stop feeling, stop thinking. You become the steel they want you to be. But steel still remembers its shape, even after being reforged. The real training started after that. Not just combat and recitation, but the surgeries. Did you know the Brotherhood modifies its most promising initiates? Nothing as crude as the Institute's synths or as monstrous as super mutant conversion. Subtle things. Implants that increase reaction time. Metabolic adjustments that let you survive on half rations. Neural conditioning that makes you more resistant to radiation and psychological trauma. They don't tell you about the failures. Initiate Weber, whose implants rejected and left her paralyzed from the neck down. They transferred her to the scribe order, said it was an honor to serve with her mind when her body failed. We could hear her screaming at night, begging them to let her die. Initiate Kowalski, whose neural conditioning went wrong and left him, unable to feel fear or anything else. He'd stand in the firing range, letting training rounds bounce off his armor, laughing at nothing. They had to put him down when he stopped distinguishing between allies and enemies. But those of us who survived, we became something more than human, less than human, both and neither. I could hear heartbeats through walls, track a mutant hound by scent alone. My hands became steady enough to disassemble a Gauss rifle in complete darkness and reassemble it in under 60 seconds. The Codex wasn't just memorized anymore, it was carved into my neural pathways. Sometimes I'd wake up, reciting technical specifications in my sleep. That's when they started the real missions. Not just technology recovery, but population management. See, the Brotherhood had done the math. The Capital Wasteland couldn't sustain its current population with available resources. Too many mouths, not enough food or clean water. So we adjusted the numbers, never directly. The Brotherhood doesn't massacre civilians. That's what separates us from raiders, they said. But if a settlement's defenses happen to fail just before a super mutant attack, if their water purifier happened to break just before radiation, storms, if the caravan routes they depended on suddenly became too dangerous for traders, well, that was just the wasteland being the wasteland. We called it strategic resource reallocation. Knight Captain Durand had a gift for making genocide sound like logistics. I led my first reallocation mission 4 months into my service, settlement called Covenant. You might have heard of it, place that gave psychological tests to visitors trying to screen out synths. Turns out they had something the Brotherhood wanted more than their paranoid little screening process. They'd found an intact medical research facility in their compound's basement. Pre-war medtech that could synthesize stimpaks from Brahmin, blood and irradiated fungus. The plan was elegant in its cruelty. We couldn't attack directly. Covenant had trade agreements with Diamond City, and the Brotherhood needed those supply lines, so we poisoned their water table. Not enough to kill quickly, just enough to cause organ failure over the course of weeks. When the sickness started, we arrived as saviors, offered to evacuate the civilians to Brotherhood medical facilities. They never made it to medical. We diverted the transport vertibird to a cliff overlooking the Atlantic, told them there was a mechanical failure, that they needed to evacuate. Watched them jump into the ocean, one by one, power-armored knights, ensuring no one chose to stay with the aircraft. The water was so irradiated, it glowed green at night. Their bodies were dissolved within hours. No evidence, no witnesses. Just another settlement lost to the wasteland's dangers. Covenant's medical facility now serves as forward operating base Zulu. We produce 600 stimpaks a week there. But here's what the Brotherhood doesn't understand about steel. Even the Psi, strongest metal, has a breaking point. Mine came in the form of a synth. We'd tracked him to a runoff tunnel beneath the Capital Wasteland, M797, according to the Institute designation we'd pulled from a recovered terminal. He'd been living as a farmer named David for 3 years, had a wife, 2 kids. The younger one called him Papa in this voice that made you forget he wasn't real, wasn't human. I found him trying to repair a water pump while his family slept. He looked up at me, this machine wearing a dead man's face, and instead of running, he said, "Please, just let me finish fixing this. They'll need clean water when I'm gone." I should have shot him immediately. Codex Section 9, Subsection 4. Synthetic organisms represent an existential threat to human genetic purity and must be terminated upon identification. But I watched him work instead. Watched his hands, steadier than mine despite knowing he was about to die, carefully realign the filtration matrix. "You know what's funny?" he said, not looking up. "I know I'm a synth. The Institute made sure I'd never forget that. But these memories of teaching my daughter to read, of my wife's laugh, they feel more real than your conviction that I'm just a machine." "Memories can be programmed," I replied, my laser rifle trained on his head. "So can soldiers." The words hit harder than any physical blow, because he was right. Every thought in my head had been shaped, molded, programmed by the Brotherhood. Was I any less artificial than him? Any less of a construct? "My family doesn't know," he continued, finishing the pump repair. "The Institute replaced the real David 2 years before I escaped. But I've been more of a father to those children than he ever was. Never raised a hand to them. Never drank away their food money. Never made them feel like burdens." He finally looked up at me. "So what makes him more human than me? His organic brain? The same brain that chose cruelty over kindness. I killed him anyway. One shot through the processing unit behind his left ear. He dropped instantly, fluid that looked too much like blood pooling beneath his head. I filed my report, collected the bounty, received another commendation, but his words had planted something in me, a doubt that grew like radiation sickness. I started noticing things, how Knight Commander Hicks collected trophies from the settlements we cleared, children's toys, wedding rings, personal holotapes he'd play for entertainment in the barracks, how Scribe Jameson was modifying our mission reports, inflating threat assessments to justify harsher measures, how Elder Maxon himself had that empty look in his eyes, like something inside him had been scooped out and replaced with Brotherhood doctrine. Then came Operation Broken Chain. The railroad, those fools who helped synths escape, had established a major safehouse in the ruins of Arlington. Elder Maxon wanted them eliminated, but more than that, he wanted the synths they were harboring. 12 units, according to our intelligence. 12 machines pretending to be human, hiding among actual refugees. We surrounded the building at dawn. 50 knights in full power armor. Enough firepower to level a city block. The railroad fought back. They always did, right to the end. But what haunts me isn't the battle. It's what came after. We found the refugees in the basement. 43 souls crammed into a maintenance tunnel. Men, women, children. The 12 synths hidden among them, indistinguishable from the humans they stood beside. Elder Maxon himself came down to oversee the sorting. "Separate them," he ordered. "Synths to the left, humans to the right." But here's the thing about Institute synths, the ones with synthetic flesh and bone, not the obvious mechanical units. You can't tell by looking. Even medical scans can be inconclusive. The only sure way is to kill them and check for synth components. So Maxon ordered us to kill them all. "The humans are contaminated," he explained, his young face carved from stone. "They chose to stand with abominations. Their genes are forfeit. Their lives are forfeit. This is mercy. I want you to picture it. Really picture it. 43 people on their knees in that tunnel. A mother holding her infant, singing it a lullaby as Knight Reese raised his laser rifle. An old man with cataracts, fumbling for his wife's hand in the dark. A boy, maybe 14, who looked exactly like my sister Sarah had at that age, down to the radiation burn across her left cheek. We killed them all. Methodically, efficiently, The tunnel walls turned to glass from the heat of our weapons. When we sifted through the remains, we found component chips from only 7 synths. The other 5 had either escaped earlier or never existed. Our intelligence had been wrong. 31. Humans dead for 7 machines. Elder Maxon called it an acceptable ratio. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because of guilt, the Brotherhood had burned that out of me, but because I finally understood what we really were. We weren't humanity's shield against technology. We were just another faction of raiders, dressed in prettier armor, telling prettier lies. The only difference between us and the Gunners, or the Talon Company, was that we'd convinced ourselves our atrocities were righteous. I tried to leave, pack my gear, made it to the Citadel's gates before Knight Captain Duran stopped me. Going. Somewhere initiate. Patrol, I lied. He smiled. Steel doesn't smile like that, cold and sharp and knowing. No one leaves the Brotherhood, Harrison. You know this. You've helped enforce this. He was right. I'd hunted 3 deserters myself, brought back their holotags and their heads, as protocol demanded. The Brotherhood doesn't just own your service. It owns your life, your death, your purpose. So I stayed, kept following orders, kept killing, but something inside me had broken loose, rattling around like shrapnel. Every mission, every confiscation, every tactical adjustment to the population. That loose piece ground away at whatever was left of my soul. Until yesterday. We received intelligence about a massive technology cache hidden beneath a place called University Point. Pre-war military weapons, enough to arm a small army. Turned out to be true. Also turned out the settlement above it had already found the cache. They were using the weapons to defend against Mirelurk attacks from the bay. Standard procedure. Secure the technology, eliminate witnesses, raise the settlement as a warning to others. But when we arrived, I saw her. This little girl, maybe 6 years old, radiation burns across her face in the exact pattern Sarah had. Same brown eyes, same way of tilting her head when she was confused. It wasn't her, couldn't be her, but my mind couldn't stop making the connection. When Paladin Krieg ordered me to clear the schoolhouse, I froze. Not refused, just froze. Like my power armor had seized up. Like every piece of Brotherhood conditioning in my brain hit a wall it couldn't break through. Krieg shot me himself. Plasma bolt through the gaps in my chest plate. Said I'd been contaminated, shown weakness, become rust that needed to be burned away. Left me to die while they finished the mission. But plasma wounds are funny things. They cauterize as they burn. Keeps you from bleeding out even as it cooks you from the inside. I had enough strength to crawl to this old relay tower, start this recording. The fever's setting in now. Infection or radiation or both. Doesn't matter. I'll be dead before anyone finds this. You want to know the truth about being a Brotherhood. Initiate. It's not about honor or protecting humanity. It's about becoming the monster you once fought against, piece by piece, until you can't remember what you were protecting in the first place. It's about watching yourself turn into steel and realizing that steel doesn't save anyone. It just cuts cleaner than rust. The Brotherhood of Steel isn't humanity's salvation. It's just another form of extinction, marching in power armor, reciting litanies to justify its atrocities. We're not knights, we're not soldiers, we're just scavengers with delusions of righteousness, picking clean the corpse of a world we claim to be saving. If you find this recording, if you're thinking of joining, then remember Margaret's grandson, remember David the Synth, remember those 31 humans in Arlington, remember that the Brotherhood's steel is forged from the bones of everyone who stood in their way. Remember Initiate Harrison, designation 447B, who died as rust because he couldn't stay steel. Remember that monsters don't always look like super mutants or feral ghouls. Sometimes they look like knights in shining armor.